They might mean well, and I want to believe that, but they're absolutely not ready.
Welcome to Truth for America, a new podcast where we'll talk about important issues. My name is Julian Vasquez Heilig. I'm a professor of educational leadership and policy studies at California State University. And I'm here today with two folks. First, my co-host, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Jameson Brewer. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Illinois.
Excellent. And we also have a special guest with us, joining us from Houston, Texas. She's anonymous today for reasons we'll discuss later, but her name for today's podcast will be Maria. Today we're going to talk about Teach for America. And during our podcast today, we're going to talk about the perspective of a principal that oversaw and taught in a Houston public school. So, Maria, my first question is, just what has been your general experience with Teach for America teachers in Houston? And of course, Jameson, at any time you want to pop in with questions, please do.
Yeah, great.
Okay. In general, I have to say that it has not been a positive experience. The reason being, to me, the program is flawed from the beginning. I've, of course, encountered several individuals that they did have the vocation and they did want to be a teacher, and that they became good teachers. But I think the problem is not with the individuals, but with the program itself. So all in all, it has not been a very good experience because I think that it subtracts professionalism from the profession.
And one of the things that Teach for America, they recently responded to something on Diane Ravage's blog, and there was three main points that they made in their response. The first point was that, well, Teach for America is very diverse now. The second point that they made in that response was that principals really adore Teach for America. And before the podcast began, Jameson Brewer and I were talking about some of Teach for America's principal study data. So what do you think? Are Teach for America teachers really culturally sensitive? Are they ready to teach in an urban high school? And I've been to Maria's high school in Houston when I worked there. It was incidentally, the high school that she taught at and was a principal at was a school that was a part of a research study. Are Teach for America teachers really culturally sensitive? Are they ready to teach in urban Houston?
They are absolutely not ready. They might mean well, and I want to believe that, but they're absolutely not ready. And let me tell you this about diversity. If they're saying that it's very diverse now, they must mean today, because 2 years ago it wasn't. And I'm going to give you this example.
When you say 2 years ago, when you say 2 years ago it wasn't, what do you mean?
Even yesterday it wasn't. I don't know if they're making like big changes today, as of today, January, but it has not been diverse. It has never been diverse. Majority of the population is white, period. It is what it is. And I have to say that, for example, my high school was one of those training facilities that the program uses during the summer. So all the teachers would congregate there. So I had a very good experience seeing the profile of the program. I remember, I think it was last summer, not this past summer, but the former one, we had a fire drill, so everybody had to exit the building, and something that was powerful to me, I was looking at them outside in the parking lot, and the whole group, and I'm talking about maybe 80 people or around that, I could say that I was trying to count it. I was trying to see the diversity. Out of about 80 people, I could see like maybe 3 to 5 African Americans, 2 Indian guys, no Hispanic. And that's just beyond ridiculous if you're trying to service the population in the Houston Independent School District. They're absolutely not ready to receive our students in the classroom. Even if they mean well, they've never been in a class in which everybody's part of a minority group. So they don't even know how to approach that.
So Jameson, you're a former TFA alum corps member. Was that your experience? I mean, TFA is telling us that their corps is very, very diverse nowadays. What was your experience?
Yeah. Well, certainly in the corps that I was in Metro Atlanta, starting in 2010, it was predominantly white. And from what I understand, still most of the regions are predominantly white. And we've even seen that in a lot of their initiatives to get more non-white faces in front of the classrooms. Those teachers of color, they're still pushing a very white cultural assumption about what success and what merit looks like, right? And so, Maria, I wanted to ask you a question specifically in looking at the TFA teachers that you had compared to the non-TFA teachers, and of course, in this environment that we're in with schools and the increase and elevation of testing and things like that. What did you see any differences with how the TFA teachers approached pedagogical practices? Right, was it very towards the test, and did they, regardless of their own cultural background, what type of assumptions about success did they promote in the classroom?
Well, to start with, they assume that everybody has a standard family setting, so they're assuming that in terms of sending homework, in terms of assuming they're going to be able to do projects, they're going to be able to buy some of the supplies. So they're making assumptions from their own point of view and from where they come from, and they're absolutely not ready. And the thing is, they're too young a lot of times. And it's only logical that if they have not had that experience, they haven't exposed themselves to that plurality, so they don't know how to approach it. As I said, I want to think that most of the individuals mean well, but they don't have the tools. Even the Teach for America guideline people, they lack the experience. They're still very young. They still don't come from the classroom. They don't have a trajectory of success in testing. And one way that my district, let's say, masks that is by putting Teach for America teachers in the pre-AP classes or AP class automatically. So the scores are not going to be miserable. But they're not putting them in the situations in which they have to face students that might be below grade level or the students that might be struggling. And that also causes a lot of tension between the Teach for America teachers and the regular teachers, because you're giving me the students that are challenging, you're giving these other kids students that are way more proficient, and then you're comparing our scores. And you're telling me that, yeah, he might not have the experience, but see, he's almost performing as well as you, or he's performing as well as you on his first year. Well, he has kids that are ready. My kids are not. So they're approaching the success component from a very middle class white perspective. Period.
So that, I think, thanks for that. It really brings up another question that I have. In your role as a principal and in dealing with the district as they took in Teach for America corps members, how much say-so did you have, or decision power did you have to allow Teach for America corps members in your classroom, or to what classrooms they were assigned? Was that something that you had a lot of autonomy and decision and control over, or were you kind of told what to do or given certain parameters to work with them?
We're pushed to hire Teach for America. Houston Independent District Teach for America has an office in the main building right now. And it's an initiative district-wide, and we're pushed to hire from Teach for America before we hire from anybody else.
So there's a spoken assumption or rule in some ways that before, if you have an opening in your building, you ought to consider or fill it with a Teach for America corps member before you look outside of Teach for America.
Exactly. Even when we start talking about master schedule, which happens around January, February for the next year, and we start kind of projecting the openings that we're going to have based on the teachers that are going to be let go, or the teachers that are going to leave, and the numbers projected for the school. We already have like a hiring round around March, April, so they can be hired before anybody else.
Well, so in Teacher America's press release, they say here that, quote, Teacher America goes through the same hiring process as any other teacher candidate.
No.
But it doesn't sound like from what it sounds like they get preference. It sounds like
they get absolute preference. They get pushed from the district. District wants. If I'm saying right now I'm gonna need like 3 algebra teachers, 2 chemistry teachers. From now to August, the numbers are going to change. But the ones that I know for sure now, I have to get them from Teach for America. And then as time goes by, Teach for America teachers not available anymore. Some teachers we're not going to find from Teach for America, like ESL teachers. They usually don't have that specialty. They do, but very, very low numbers. And that's a great need in this district. Like being ESL certified or ESL trained or have some degree of ESL preparation, and they're not. So it's going to be a point where we have to hire out of Teach for America. But the first couple of rounds, they come, the basis of the school, the foundation of the new hires is going to come from Teach for America. So we are very pushed to do that. And in regards to they goes through the same process, my district comes up, it's a very huge district, it's the 4th largest in America, I guess. It goes through trends. So the trend now was using the Haberman process to hire teachers. Well, the Teach for America group was exempt from going through any of the hurdles that everybody else has to go.
Wow.
They automatically. They don't have to. And that's something that is creating to teachers, because the Haberman, in my opinion, does not predict success at all. And it's a recipe. So if you know the ingredients, you can answer the questions and be the worst professional on earth, and being able to do the interview with flying colors, if you know what is it about, because it's not authentic. It's as I said, it's a step-by-step kind of recipe. So the teachers, they were upset with this new system, because it's one of those magic potions that is supposed to predict how good a teacher is going to be, and of course it doesn't. And Teach for America teachers were totally exempt from doing it. That caused a lot of animosity.
Go ahead, James.
So, Marie, is that where so I'm thinking, in everything about you just said, when the district or the superintendent or the folks who are pushing you to hire Teach for America, what's the justification or the rationale behind that? Because we know that the district is paying a finder's fee for these folks, so in some ways they're a little bit more expensive on the front end. What is the environment or the culture of the district that would justify pushing these Teach for America teachers on to principals? I mean, what are you supposedly getting for it?
Well, they're supposed to be coming up with data about success. It's supposed to be the fix to all the issues for diversity. You know that what the reform endorses about not really minding what you have behind. What is important is that you have an effective teacher in the class, and all the solutions are going to come with that. Well, they're saying that that's the most effective teacher. They're saying just that. Everybody's asking about where the data come from. Can we see accurate data? Can we see tracking data from teachers from year to year? Can we compare similar populations between Teach for America and non-Teach for America, so we can see that? But that data is not available. They just say it's the magic, it's the poster boy for the reform. It's the ideal teacher that is committed, because it's coming from Ivy League school or from a great school, and that means that it's going to just do better than anybody else. And that's not true. I mean, everybody knows that you have to master your profession before you're effective, but they're doing away with that. In no other profession you would like to go to someone without experience.
Well,
you wouldn't go to a doctor that doesn't have experience. You wouldn't go to a lawyer that doesn't have experience. I would not put my kid with the Teach for America teacher in his class.
Well, that's an important I think comment, which is that if teachers that are teaching with Teach for America teachers would not want their children to be taught for Teach for America teachers, and we know that the wealthy, their students are not taught by Teach for America teachers, right? That just doesn't happen.
Let me say something about that, because the district knows very well what they're doing. Because my son He's a student. He's 7 years old. He's a second grader. He's a student in the district, and he goes to a certain school. And I don't want to say the name, but it's, even though it's inside the city, it's a very affluent area. Very affluent. The houses around are all of them above like maybe $700,000. It's a very affluent area where he goes to school. Well, they don't have Teach for America in that school. They don't. They don't send those kids to teach. They don't send those teachers to that school. They send them to the schools that are struggling. They send them to the schools that are diverse by definition. So
right.
They knows that that's not true. I don't understand why they push it, because they know it. They don't send those teachers to my son's school. My son's school does not have Teach for America teachers. Kids in grades 5 and above, they're never taught by new teachers. Never. In testing grades, they're always taught by experienced teachers.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a real indictment. And let me ask you this question. A lot of times Teach for America will say, in their press release, they say that all teachers have to start somewhere. That was their response to Diane Ravage's blog. But it's clear from your comment, what they're saying is our teachers start, they cut their teeth on poor kids. We're not going to let these teachers start in wealthy neighborhoods. My question is, and we talked a little bit about this before we started the program, which is that, Teach for America will also often say that their new teachers are no different than teachers that are trained and certified. But my question is, what is the difference between, say, a teacher that was trained at the University of Texas, that's a new teacher, is certified, ready to go at your large urban high school in Houston, versus a Teach for America teacher? I mean, we know the Teach for America teacher has only had, 18 hours in the classroom on average and 5 weeks of training at the Institute in Houston. But, they'll say that their teacher's the exact same as the University of Texas, a College of Education grad. Are they really the same? What's been your experience?
No. Teach for America is a program that does have support for the teachers, but it's a very weak program in itself. And as I said, my school was a training facility, so I exactly saw what kind of training they get during those famous 5 weeks. It's not in 5 weeks. I can tell you, the first 3 weeks, they're never in the classroom teaching. They're just observing the teacher. For the last couple of weeks, they would teach for half a day, and half a day, we're talking about summer school day, so we're talking for no more than 3 hours a day, with the other teacher present in the class. They're never by themselves. And by saying this, what I'm trying to say is the teacher that is in the classroom is already holding down the discipline, already has the structure of the classroom going on, and they just experimenting with just being in front of the student. But they're not getting a taste of the reality. And that's why the second week of school, we have teachers crying. We have people quitting, because it's only logical. It's only logical. And as I was saying before, another problem with the program is the number of Teach for America. I understand all teachers have to start somewhere. I was a teacher for so many years, and I had to start somewhere. But believe me, I was not a master teacher until I had 2, 3, 4 years in the classroom. And the problem is they're saying that they're ready to go after 5 weeks. And after the 2 years, when they would be starting to become halfway proficient, they're leaving.
So you're saying after 2 years they leave. What percentage at your high school would you say left after 2 years? Just
everybody. I would say out of maybe 40 that would hire, maybe we'll have 1 or 2 after the second year.
Wow. So Teach for America. Go ahead, Jameson.
But let me tell you also this, because I think it's important to point it out. Another problem that comes with Teach for America, and that's different from different programs, is because they have that push from the district. We have large numbers. We've been in a situation where the whole entire department for English 2 was new, and that's not a healthy situation. We all started somewhere, but when I started, the teacher to my left and the teacher to my right were better than teachers. So I was able to reach out, and they were able to help me out. Now everybody's new, so nobody knows what they're doing, and they don't have anywhere to go to ask for that. for the help. And again, teachers, for example, from UT, they come with a more solid foundation, like they're educators, they're vocational teachers, the people that are seeking to do that. Teach for America, most people are seeking for a temporary fix, in order to go to a different career. We do have other ACP programs, the people coming from other careers that decide to be a teacher, and they're in there for the long run. Teach for America, they give you the reward after 5 weeks. So, and you're good to go. So there is no investment in pursuing that as a long-term career. So,
yeah. So would you say then that the majority of the TFA teachers who are leaving, that they've left the classroom, they've left teaching, they've abandoned students, all these other things, because they were never invested in teaching from the very beginning? Or do you think that, how much of just having a negative experience in general, right? We know that, of course, all new teachers struggle with classroom management, but it seems in my experience that Teach for America teachers struggle a little bit more, and that's to be expected, right? But as Julian pointed out, they've had 18 hours of student teaching, and as you pointed out, it's in an incredibly unrealistic setting, right? Other teachers in the room and cameras running in the background. Do you find that they're leaving teaching because they were never invested from the beginning, or how much is it that they just struggle so much that even those who maybe had good intentions of staying because of Teach for America's paradigm and how they approach education, that they just had enough after their 2 years?
Well, I believe it's the first thing for the majority of them. And then you're going to have a few that are going to discover that they love the teaching profession and they're going to stay. But I think the majority, and I think it because they've told me, because they will tell you what their plan is. I'm going to be here 2 years, I'm going to medical school. I'm going to be here 2 years, and then I'm going to look for this and that in the private company field. So they come with a plan, and they will tell you. So I think that there is a flaw in the recruiting process right there. Who is going to master a profession that is not for the long run, they're not invested on, they're not being asked to do anything that is going to be taxed for in the future, who would just give their best? So the thing is, and they feel, another thing that happens is, if a teacher is really having a hard time in a school in HISD, the district would bend themselves backwards to accommodate that teacher in another school or to look for a different situation. Whereas if you're not a TFA teacher, they will just fire you, period. So,
wow, so you're saying that if you're not TFA, they'll just straight out fire you. If you are TFA,
yes, that's it. If they're TFA, they will try to place you 2, 3, and 4 times in different schools, so you can just stay.
Wow.
And I lived it. I'm not talking about one random sample. I'm talking about the significant number of samples.
I think that's an important question.
And
you can already predict what Teach for America is going to say. They're going to say to this podcast, well, that's just Houston, or that's just that one particular school. Does this resonate with what your experience was in Georgia, Jameson, as a TFA teacher?
Yeah, it certainly does. So I'm a traditionally trained teacher. I joined TFA during the recession to get a job, and the school that I was ultimately placed at, they had 4 social studies teachers. Of course, not at school during the summer, but they were planning to enter the new year with 4 social studies teachers. Because of Teach for America's contract with the Atlanta Public Schools, they had to place me somewhere. The principal was told to level, which is getting rid of, not really laying off, but told one of those 4 social studies teachers that the student population projections didn't justify having 4 teachers. Well, 2 days after that individual was leveled, I was brought in. In fact, I met my principal the first day of pre-planning. I did an interview for the job. I didn't know what my principal's name was. But after that first year of teaching, right, being a staff of 4, Atlanta Public Schools was going to do more leveling across the board. I kind of got worried because I thought, well, I'm the youngest teacher. I've only been here for a year. And somebody said to me, look, you don't have to worry at all because you're Teach for America. You're untouchable. They can't level you. And sure enough, the very person who said that to me was leveled the next week, and hasn't had a teaching job since because of state budget at the time. And I was protected as a Teach for America teacher, whereas this traditionally certified veteran of 10 years in the classroom lost her job because of leveling.
Wow. So,
Yes.
And in addition to that, and looking, and so that was my experience in Atlanta. Of course, Maria is talking about Houston, but we've looked at the contracts that Teach for America has with districts across the entire country, and almost all of them have language that say that while Teach for America is not necessarily immune to reduction in forces or leveling or layoffs or things like that, that they must be given priority when replacing. In fact, 3 years ago in Chicago, all of the Corps members lost their jobs at a certain point, but 100% of them were placed in different schools. 100% of them found new jobs within the district within a short period of time, while thousands of other teachers who were laid off are, many of them to this day, still unemployed.
That's exactly what happened in Houston. They work it out backwards, in the sense of they went to the reduction in force first. They clean out house with all those teachers that had especially permanent contracts, long-term contracts, and they start bringing cohorts of Teach for America. So.
Well, I want to start wrapping up here. I want to be respectful of Maria's time and Jameson's time, and so really, we in this podcast, we really were looking at some of the issues that were raised in Teach for America's response to Diane Ravage's blog recently. And the first thing, of course, that we addressed, Teach for America's talked extensively about the diversity of their Corps. And both of our guests really spoke to the fact that from their experiences, the Corps was not very diverse. And then the second really issue we talked about was the fact that, everyone was once a first-year educator. But we talked, the guest spoke to the fact that, well, everyone was a first-year educator, but only certain kids receive first-year educators that have very little training, and that is the experience of both of our the co-hosts and the guests. And then finally, the principal, they say in their response that principals value having TFA. And in this podcast, we have a principal that really laid it out for the public. Teach for America has millions of dollars to spend on marketing and rapid response press releases. But it's this counter-narrative that this principal from Houston has provided us today clearly shows that not all principals are willing to put their stamp of approval on bringing in very poorly trained and teachers into the classroom on a revolving basis. And then finally, I just want to thank each of you and give you an opportunity to make one final quick statement for the listeners of this First Truth for America podcast. Jameson, did you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to first thank Maria for giving us some time today and being very candid about her experience as a principal and working with Teach for America. I think these are important questions to ask, and I think that anyone who's been following or researching or looking at anything with Teach for America for the past few years, it's notable that just until 2 years ago, Teach for America has really controlled the conversation and the public perception about what their Corps members do, what their alumni do. And so I think that these types of conversations are very important, and they're very important to have them with folks who are on the ground, like Maria is.
I want to say something in regards to principals being happy about having TFA teachers in the school. We might be happy in terms of a lot of the individuals are very committed. They want to do it. They're going to stay long hours at school. One thing that you can see is because a lot of the people that are sent to Houston, they're not from here. They do not have ties in the community. They don't have family. They don't have kids. They don't have the time commitment that most of us have to have with our relatives. So they're very free. So they're the first one staying for a math night. They're the first one staying for things after school. And in those terms, the principals like that. But in terms of what it should be about, which is academics and instruction, yeah, no, it doesn't help.
Great, and thank you so much, Maria, for your very candid comments, and thank you so much for helping us to reframe Teacher America's
Thank you.
conversation. And I hope everyone has a great day. And please look forward to episode 2 of Truth for America.